welcome. For those of you that may recognize one of these gentlemen, I am joined by Terry, and today we have Devin, both from PC-Matic. Now, last time you were here, time flies when you're having fun. It was, 2 weeks ago-ish? And everyone, there were a lot of trolls. Let's just say what it is. There were so many trolls on the comments, but I think it was good because they were able to troll. I was able to take some of those comments and ask you some legitimate questions, and I think we made progress. So where we're at today is Terry has brought Devin. Devin, you are a sales engineer, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I kind of go by the policy of tell me whatever you want. But that's, sales engineer, product marketing. I kind of do a little bit of it all.
Okay, good. So we've got Devin here today, and he's going to kind of walk us through a demo because I think I'd like to say all of us as MSPs are now to the point where, all right, you've talked the talk. Now show us, prove to us that this isn't some kind of malware with commercials, because that's what everyone assumes. You're just malware with commercials, right? So prove to them you're not, and run us through this, man.
Yeah, no problem. Let me.
I'm gonna turn your mic a little bit, Devin. It's a little soft.
Yep. Okay. 1 sec.
There you go. I think it was just saying a little mic.
Try to keep it a little bit closer there, and I'll speak up. See if that helps. I'm gonna share the screen here and let me know if everything looks good on your side, Steve.
Sounds good. And once that gets shared, we'll be good. Devin, while you're getting that going, can you give us some background on you and your history with PC-Matic?
Yeah, definitely. I've been with PC-Matic about 5 years now. Like I said before, I kind of do a little bit of everything with the titles. I've had my hand in a majority of the departments here at some point. I kind of started off early on doing some malware research here, and I've helped out some in customer support, and moved more towards marketing, and have done now of late more front-end web development as well. Done sales engineer type things like Terry mentioned on the last podcast here, but so a little bit of a variety of things, but been around for a decent amount of time now. Basically about since we started having a more full-fledged MSP platform. Yeah.
Awesome, thank you. It is it's 2:44. It's Wednesday. We're live. So those of you watching us, feel free to pop in questions if you have questions. I think PC-Matic is here to answer them. Otherwise, I'm going to flip over to this shared screen, and we are seeing PC-Matic MSP.
Perfect. Yeah, and let me know how you want to kind of navigate through this less than traditional demo that we'd go through with an end user with an MSP versus on a more long form podcast. So if we want to kind of pause at certain sections and talk about them a little bit more, or
sure,
ask questions as we go, definitely just jump in. It keeps me more entertained than going through same sales pitch every single time, even though I wouldn't really call it a sales pitch. But anyway, so kind of the beginning of the MSP platform here, and I know you guys talked about it a little bit on the last podcast, but obviously I'm sure not everybody will be the same between the two here. So just the kind of high level, we've got a cloud-based console for management, like we talked about the last time. It steps a little bit towards the RMM space as well, so we'll see that as we go. You're set up for multi-tenant control. Really simple to use, and we'll kind of bounce around to all the different sections here, but this is really the main hub of any kind of management. There's really nothing that sits down on the device, no UI that the user is really going to see on their machine. No management that they're doing from there. It's all going to happen from the cloud console here, and everything's set up for cloud hosting. There's no on-prem option at the time, so it gives you pretty easy setup and access and everything. So first things first here, I always like to talk a little bit about kind of just the architecture of the account here. So really everything's set up for 4 different tiers. You've got an entire MSP level. You've got your individual customers. You've got groups. You've got devices. So you can break everything out pretty much however you'd like. As you can see, just some placeholder customers in here. It's super easy to add a customer in. You just click the add a customer button here. You type in a name. That's all you gotta add. You can put in their contact info if you want, and notes about them, and be able to come back in and view all of that. But just getting a customer in there, just give them some kind of name. You could assign groups at that time if you want to as well. You can go back and add them later. It's all pretty flexible, but it gives you an easy way to add the customer in there. Now, like I was saying with the architecture that you've got, all the settings as we go through and look at them. I know you guys talked a lot about the whitelisting last time around, especially locally whitelisting, so we'll definitely show that process. But again, keep in mind things like that, or changing settings, applying different policies. You can pretty much do all of them at any of those different levels. So you can set a really broad-based policy, for your entire MSP account. You can drill down to customers, groups or devices, and apply them that way if you'd like as well. And it just kind of works, bottom up. So whatever the lowest level is that's set, the devices pull in that level as their current policy.
Okay.
So we'll move inside of an individual customer here. So this is where most of the features and management and everything's going to happen. We'll go back out to the kind of higher levels and some of the reports that exist at the MSP level as well later on. But focusing in on an individual customer here. First thing I always like to touch on a little bit is just deployment. It seems like it's always front of mind. How do you get the product deployed, and what different options are there? So just a quick run through of that. There's a single agent that you deploy out to each machine, just an MSI installer. So you can pretty much install it however you'd like. You can throw a command in and silently install it through the prompt as well. You can push it out through most third-party tools. You can email it out to people. You have a direct link that goes to it, so you could send them the link and have them download it and install it themselves. You could host it somewhere, obviously. It's pretty flexible to get that installed, and you get to customize it before you actually download it or push it out to anybody. So that could be choosing some of the features that are included in it. I know you guys talked about the remote access last time around, our VNC agent that we have. That one's checked here by default, and then you've got an option for an ad blocker here as well that'll add into your major browsers that you can just include right in that package there, or you can push out as an install later on as well. So there's some flexibility there for add-ons that you want to include, or if you didn't want to include the VNC for certain customers, it gives you an easy way to just not even have it installed and not have to worry about that.
Okay. Now I see you have a Windows and a Mac installer.
Yep, we do support Mac as well. The thing I always like to throw out with the Mac platform is as they talked about the last time, we were really a Windows company early on. We're pretty new to supporting Mac in the last year and a half or so. So it's not as full-fledged of a product as the Windows platform is when it comes to the management features. It's really was pushed out, mainly focused on security. So taking the same whitelist-based approach like they talked about the last time on the Mac side, but doesn't include most of the remote features.
Yeah, we're taking on the same methodology for the Linux module that we're building. It should be out later in the year or towards the first part of next year.
Awesome. So basically the Mac version is like the Windows version. It obviously there's going to be differences, but you're going for like feature parity between them all eventually, right?
Yeah, it's definitely the goal. Just that initial release was, let's get the security component nailed down. Obviously, that's been happening over a long time on the Windows side, and that was really how the Windows product came together as well. I mean, even when we first launched the MSP platform, we didn't have all these remote features included initially. We had a few of them. We had, the patch management that we do that we'll go through, but it's just been kind of steadily adding more features as people are requesting different options.
Yeah. On the initial download here for the configuration, a couple of features we want to point out. So You have the ability to lock out the endpoint agent from being messed with by your endpoint user. We recommend that as a default setting. You don't want your endpoint agent to be turned on and off by your user unless you're doing it explicitly. But those features can be added to the MSI to make sure that it's going out with the highest security settings.
Gotcha.
Because we do allow some tailorability for endpoint access.
Definitely. Yeah. So like I was saying before, it's really set up, especially by default, to have no user interface, no controls from the device itself, like Terry was saying there. And that's actually this first setting for the system tray menu. That's the only thing you see on the device really when it's installed, obviously, unless you're hunting through the, folder structure and, control panel and everything, or looking at services that are running. But you're really just going to have our protection icon down there and an about option that tells you what version you're currently running, unless you're in here changing settings, enabling the tray menu like this one's on right here, and giving more options to the user. But again, by default, it's really trying to keep all that locked down.
Excellent. Okay.
So let's see, a couple of the other things we'll talk about in here, just while we got time, we'll elaborate a little bit more on some of these areas. So you'll see some of the options in here, which hopefully are a little bit more self-explanatory. We've been trying to make the naming schema that we have in here a little bit more straightforward on what a feature actually is. So we've got some control over removable storage devices. So, things like jump drives, flash drives, SD cards that you can block and not allowed to connect to devices if you want, either, again, right from the jump here in the installer, or, you want to create a policy for a customer or group, XYZ that you don't want to allow those to connect to. You've got a little bit of granular control in terms of overriding at the device. So one of the features that's inside of that tray menu you can expand out is some control over what the user sees when a file is blocked. So typically the default is we just slide a Windows notification in. It tells them that we blocked the file. Again, no controls, no action they can take or anything. But you've got a few different options where you can either silence those notifications, not show them to the user at all. You can go with your standard display, or you can turn on a override ability, which then lets that user say, actually I want to run this, or, I don't want to run this. They get to choose whether they're going to allow it or block it. And for obvious reasons, that's not enabled by default, but it is something that you can figure if you had, a more advanced user, developer, whoever looking to run custom software really easily.
I like that. Now, I don't have to have a policy of this. Well, hold on a second. This is an installer. So are we able to change these options later on?
Absolutely. Yeah. So basically what's going to happen, this area here called Super Shield Options is kind of the center area for your security privileges that you want to hand out. They're going to be displaying initially whatever the default settings are for the platform as soon as you get it loaded up in here. After that, they're going to start inheriting the settings that you've applied right in this installer area as well. So you can set these same settings across a whole customer, your MSP account, group, device, at any time, either initially before you install or later on. You want to go to one machine and say, hey, give them the override ability for a little bit, then take it away. But once you get those policies in place, if you're saying, hey, this is our base MSP policy, 95% of our customers, I want them starting with these settings. When you apply that, then you create a customer, you come in here, these Super Shield options here are going to be set to those privileges that you've got for your your higher level. So it'll mirror the things that you've applied in other areas, and then you could change it later on as well if you wanted to.
That's really great. Thank you.
No problem. Yeah, that was a good question. The only other thing I'll point out in here, and you'll see it in a couple different areas, is just the whole structuring inside of the console is really flowy, I guess I would call it. That nothing's really locked down or restricted to you installed this device under this customer, now it's got to stay there forever. You can create installers for different customers in here really easily. You can even assign certain installers to a specific group as well. So if anybody runs that installer, they'll come up in that group already. But after that, once they're installed, there's several different places inside the console here where you can go to a device, you can select devices from the list here if you wanted to, and come in and say that you want to move the devices. And then you can even shift them in and out of different customers if you put them in the wrong spot or something, or you want to move everybody over into a new customer that you created or something. Just again, that's all pretty easy to move around, and you can see in a few different areas what your kind of structuring is like. And beyond that being just applying privileges and everything, you can also use it in some of your reporting as well. So we can come in here and look at our device list and, be able to pare this down to different groups if we wanted to, or, search through it. Obviously, a few different areas that we can navigate about the device list that's here.
Okay. Now,
all right.
If it were me controlling the mouse, I would probably skip all of this, because I like to click things that look like they're either a lot of fun or I can break a lot very quickly. So the thing I would click on the side menu is the RDP Lifeline.
Yeah, we can jump over to that. So this area, I know Terry talked about this one on the last podcast. I just finished listening to that one, so it's fresh in the mind. But this is an area where we're really focusing on RDP control, and then also reporting on RDP activity. So we're changing the settings within Windows, the remote desktop protocol setting, whether it's enabled or not. We're going to pull those settings in from what they currently are on the device. So if it's enabled, we'll see it in real time. It'll light up here as enabled. If there's an active session, we'll see the session information, user that's logged in, IP address, when they connected into the device initially. Obviously, over here on the right, we can see the ports that were set to and everything. And like he laid out in the last one, you can come in here and just easily enable or disable with a click. You can set it up on reoccurring schedules. You can set a temporary window if you want. You've got, panic off button, turn it off for everybody if you wanted to, turn it all on. So some different options in here to control that. But then on top of that, beyond seeing the active sessions in here, they'll be logged in these log tabs as well. So as you're getting sessions, each individual one will be there as a record, and then you can check that out, export it out to Excel, do as you wish.
And whereas it's used by damn near every MSP for remote desktop support, the 3389 is also the second largest vector of ransomware introduced into environments, because it's unmonitored, or folks thought it was lockdown, but it's not. So this feature here was something we included deliberately because of its prevalence in ransomware.
I like it. Okay. So, and I guess my assumption, what happens when you assume, right? When I say RDP Lifeline, my assumption is, if I want to remotely control someone's computer, I just click on this. So thank you for actually explaining what this is, because I would have looked at this, gotten confused, said this is stupid, and not given PC-Matic any further thought. So that's good. Well, you know what I mean.
Do you want to jump to the command line interface? Is that appeal to you? Because we do have the ability to do a CLI into any of the endpoints without disturbing the endpoint user.
Even Mac OS?
Not on Mac OS. Nope.
Okay. Who wants CLI on a Mac though, right? I mean, come on.
Yeah, that confusion does happen a decent amount. A lot of people see the RDP Lifeline tab, like you just said you did, and immediately think, that's where the remote tools are that they were talking about. But that is not the case. So that is some frequent confusion there. Okay, so we'll pull up the remote tools here, like Terry was talking about. So most of the remote tools live down at the individual devices page. If you saw as we navigated down there, you can just select an individual device, move down to it. Pretty self-explanatory. As long as it's got internet connection, you have the connection to it. So they don't all need to be in the same domain or anything. They don't need to remain where you installed them. But as you can see, you can throw pretty much any command in here that you want. It comes back in real time. It doesn't pop up on the user's device unless you're using some, tricky commands like trying to pop up a message box or something to them. But gives you pretty easy access here.
Okay.
So outside of that one, a couple others that we have. Little file manager tool here. Again, pretty straightforward to figure out. You've got your folder structure down here that you can navigate. You can download files from the machine. You can upload files to it. So it gives you another kind of behind the scenes tool to move an installer over if you wanted to, or drop a script on the machine and then be able to kick it off from the command prompt here.
All right, now I see some other really exciting looking ones though. So what's agent software? That looks fun.
It's not.
It's really
that's a disappointment. Yeah, so this is just our agent software. It's where you can send an uninstall command down to the machine if you wanted to. So we can be remotely uninstalled just from our management console here, and you can do it individually, or you can actually do it from that devices list too, and just bulk select devices and send the uninstall command to everybody. But
Okay.
so it isn't too exciting.
That's disappointing, but it's okay. All right, installed software. I'm hoping to see something here. Nope,
Not what you were hoping to see?
not what I was hoping to see. I was hoping to see like a little uninstall this button.
That would be handy. Yep. Really, all this is doing is kicking back your list of installed software. So it'll update anytime that a scan is done on a machine, whether that was done manually or on a schedule.
Okay.
And we'll kick back your latest list of installed software here that we have.
And I see patch management.
Yep. So this one, we've got about 30 different third-party apps that we'll do the updates for. So you'll see them listed out here down below. As you can see,
Are you
all
using
over
like
them as well.
Chocolatey or Ninite to make this happen?
We actually do this all in-house. So this was completely created by us. We also have a team that vets the updates as they come down, make sure that they're, not including PUAs or, toolbars or something like that,
Sure.
and then acts the updates and sends them out.
That's pretty cool.
And again, you can toggle on or off whatever one you want to include or don't want to include for whatever reason. If you had software that was tied to another third-party system that you didn't want an update on for whatever reason, you could just make sure it never updates.
Perfect. Okay, good.
A few different options in there.
Mozilla SeaMonkey. Do you have a lot of people using that?
I can't say I've ever even used it myself, so I'm not even sure what it is. I'm going to guess that's more of a legacy one that is still around from when we started patching these. But
I mean, it formed the base of Netscape 6 and Netscape 7. Come on, man.
Yep.
All right. So I like the patch management. That's cool. That's helpful. However, I know an MSP's argument will be, well, my RMM can do that, so I don't care if my AV or security or whatever we want to call this can do it.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, remember, we also built this as an enterprise tool. So it's not just a whitelisting and security. We built it so you could do RMM-like functions on it. That was the whole purpose of building it for the MSP. So you could look at this as, do I need to have duplicated software if I have this one console?
Okay. All right, so let's dive into. I mean, it's whitelisting, so I don't know really how much we can dive in when it comes to show me this thing not suck. But I mean,
yep.
you have some junk on a VM that you can not run because it pops up you know what I mean?
You can. This one's got that override ability that I talked about before, so
Okay.
it's going to give you a little window here where you can decide what you want to do, but typically you'll just get that Windows notification that slides in the corner there.
Perfect. So when somebody clicks on that, and that was a perfect example. So one of the big things the MSPs are worried about is your brand and the perception of your brand. So the people that really want to dig in and white label, that thing that popped up, we can even white label that?
Yeah, so really everything will be swapped out in the white label version. The only exception is this green shield will still remain here in the system tray. The name that pops up there in the tooltip is going to be swapped out. Your folder structure, your control panel, all the installer graphics. We create a separate installer build for each white label with all their graphics and naming and everything that they want to include. All the services you see running, if you look in there, are going to have the custom name that you want with it. Obviously, everything on the console side here is easy to swap out. Most of the time, the customer's not going to be seeing that, but we've got plenty of MSPs that set up some kind of access for customers. You can add different users in here and give them different roles and rights and everything. So that way they can still come here and not see our graphics, and even the URL that you go to, you'd have a custom URL that has your company name in it. So again, it's really everything swaps out except for that little shield.
Yep. And we have it's a fairly robust RBAC. I mean, you can allow and deny permissions really easily here at the level that you think it's appropriate. So we did have the notion of role-based access controls built into this portal.
Excellent. So how does someone go about creating the white label installer? Is that all automated through this dashboard, or do we have to reach out to someone on the team?
Yep, it's reaching out on somebody to somebody on the team. We basically got a checklist that we send anybody who's looking to white label with, we need the product name you want to use, company name you want to use, all the different graphics that we're going to need and what size and format they need to be and everything, and then our development team gets everything created for you.
And is there a fee for that?
There is, yep. There's a startup fee, and then there's a like 10-cent increase on the device.
Endpoint.
On the monthly cost there.
I think it goes from 83 cents to 93 cents an endpoint.
Yep, that's correct.
Do you remember what the startup fee is for the white labeling?
Yeah, the startup's at $300 right now, and then you've got a $50 a month kind of just base charge to maintain everything.
I think we got to check on that, Devin. I think we increased it to try to reduce the willy-nilly. I want a white label. I think we tried to make it so it's a serious discussion. I think we raised it from 300 to 3,000 because we want to make sure it's something that actually is a necessity and not just an MSP with 2 customers, because it is labor intensive on our time as well, right? So if we do it, we want to make sure that this is a well thought out plan from the MSP with a customer base that makes sense to do it with.
Gotcha. And I think that's fair. But I also think that is going to hurt you in some regard. The guys that don't want anyone to know that they're using PC-Matic because they're ashamed of your brand. I don't know if I would spend $3,000 before rolling something like this out to clients. I just
it's worth the discussion. But again, the impression that you and the team last webinar was based on marketing. It wasn't based on capability.
Absolutely.
This tool that we're presenting to you is not a sham wow. This is a fully baked, very robust management of console for security and control of your endpoints. So at the end of the day, what I'm really hoping people take away from here is this is a very low cost, very powerful suite of software, irrespective of what the hell you want to call it. So at the end of the day, yes, if you're hung up on the commercials, I'm sorry about that, but you should check out the product before you make that judgment call, because you're going to spend a whole lot of money with our competition for a lot less feature sets, or have to buy multiple suites of software to get the same functionality at the price point we put it at. So yes, I understand some of the marketing is prohibitive, which is why we're sort of doing this. Well, the reason we are engaging in these webinars and talking about it is to raise the level of discussion so that the sham wow comment doesn't keep coming out when we talk about this. But at the end of the day, the marketing, good, bad, or indifferent, did build the company, and it did build it to be a multi-million-dollar endeavor for the owner and founder. So having said that, it's a love-hate relationship, we understand.
So for those of you that seem a little confused, Terry is a little upset because somebody called him, somebody called PC-Matic.
Sham wow, baby.
Yes, somebody
I've ever used the ShamWow before, so I don't know how much of an insult that is. I mean, it seemed like, was it a good product at the time?
I have no idea.
You can get it at Walmart in the as seen on TV end cap. Maybe. It's a towel.
Well, so circling back to the white labeling costs, if the standard fee that Devin marked was $300, and that's what like I said, I think we'd have a discussion about it. If the $3,000 was, I don't control the pricing of that.
Sure.
It's a different department. But if it has been up to 3,000, I know I heard that in a bulletin. I'm sure we would negotiate with the MSP in question to make it a price point that they could do so.
Okay, that's fair. All right, so looking at this software, I think one of the things that makes it tough to demo PC-Matic is I feel like it's kind of just set it and forget it, because you guys are doing all the work to figure out, if applications are okay to be running. So unless
Hmm.
somebody's complaining that something specifically can't run, I just install this and never worry about it again, right?
Yeah, during the onboarding process, it is not unusual for an MSP customer to have discrete software to that entity. Like they bought some kind of accounting software or something that wouldn't be globally or found globally or in the wild all that often or at all because it was unique to that customer. During onboarding, we identify all that, we vet it, we make sure it's enabled correctly. But if things should change and you as an MSP have customers that have bought new software and introduced their environment that meet that criteria, it's as simple as a toggle to enable it in your environment or block it is the in the inverse. So it's really simple to create and maintain a local whitelist. Because if something is locally whitelisted, it may never end up on the global whitelist. I mean, if it's unique to that customer and they paid for it, it's something that they have that's designed specifically for them. It probably will never end up on the global whitelist, but it'll absolutely be enabled in the local whitelisting capability at the level that you determine it's most effective. Again, we go with least privilege. We take the from the whitelisting approach is deny all, permit by exception. And so that's the approach that we take for everything. And so you should apply the allow or deny at the most granular level that's effective for you. I'm sorry, Devin. Go ahead, brother.
Oh, don't worry about it. I like the way you lay it out, so it's fine with me. I had something I was going to add there, and then it totally just slipped my mind when you said that. But like you were saying, in terms of adding things, it's just a button that you click in here. I mean, you've got each of the individual processes laid out. You can look at them, with all kinds of different views: signed, not signed, catalog signed versus regular, blocked recently, blocked in the past. I mean, different platforms on your account. But when it comes down to it, it's really just clicking a button here to allow, and then you can go further into it if you want as well, and decide if you're adding things locally by hash, if you want to add them by certificate, by who signed the file, or even if you wanted to go down to a certain folder path, which you could do, but you've got your kind of standard options here first.
So, since we're talking about PC-Matic for MSPs, the next thing I would ask is, are all of the common MSP tools already whitelisted through and vetted through you guys, like ConnectWise, Screen Connect, Datto, like all the RMM tools and backup software, remote control, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I mean, it's so hard to say for an individual application. I mean, I know specifically all the different pieces of ConnectWise, whether it's Automate or LabTech before, or Screen Connect now, which I think is ConnectWise. Yeah.
Control.
Yeah. All right, those are all things that are definitely in there. I know we have MSPs that are using ConnectWise, and we actually used to have a small integration with ConnectWise. So we've definitely played kind of on the same field there. The majority of the other tools, I mean, like they said on the last call, we've got hundreds of MSPs that are using the platform. So it's really just, the areas that we're pulling software in from. Most likely they're in there, but it's so hard to say for sure without, having to having installed that myself or something and tested it.
So let's say we whitelist an application. See, with other tools like ThreatLocker, you're able to whitelist something, and you're also able to reference like MD5 checksums and that kind of stuff. I assume that gives you like an extra layer of security on that application, just in case the file got overwritten.
Yeah, I mean the way that we're locally whitelisting here, at least by default, especially for this application that I've got pulled up, is by hash or by checksum here, because it's not digitally signed. So you're specifically allowing this checksum here. It's not going by file name or something like that. So like you said, if that application changes in any way, it's any kind of update or anything happens in the code there, it's going to be a new checksum and an unknown again to us, which obviously is denied.
Okay, so when I do a manual allow, and then the application gets updated, I then have to go update the allow.
The new checksum you would.
Right. Yep.
Okay.
I mean, and we do that deliberately, right? I mean, it's
Oh,
you
sure.
don't know
No,
if it was a malicious or a benign intent for the change of the file hash. So we again deny all permit by exception. We vet it and make sure it's not been changed maliciously, and then you can approve it or deny it.
No, and I think that's absolutely the right way to do it. And I bet it's reasons like this that make it to where some MSPs just don't bother to do application whitelisting, because let's be honest, Terry, Devin, if you were getting paid, what you still think is too little to do too much, would you want just antivirus software, or would you want whitelisting software where every week you might need to go in and double check all your checksums and make sure if one of your customer applications gets updated that it still is able to run through PC-Matic? Like, I'm finding that many MSPs are really lackadaisical when it comes to security, and they're just too lazy to do this.
Well, that's a pretty sad indictment on the if you're making that as a community stereotype.
And that's not a blanket. I said some, not even many, just some.
Yeah. But I would say that that's unfortunate, because the alternative to that is you get shellacked and then you've got a ransomware cleanup on your hands, and then all the credibility for your MSP goes down the toilet. So laziness is not a defense in the security industry. In fact, it's actually culpable malfeasance, in my opinion. So if you're not keeping up with the environment, why the hell are they paying you?
I mean, I could totally see the other side of it, though, like you were laying out. I mean, I could easily see taking the lazy approach, and that's the battle we constantly are fighting against. And I know you guys talked about on the last podcast, is like not even just overcoming the marketing hurdle like we talked about earlier, but overcoming the whitelisting hurdle. I mean, it's so much easier to just, everybody knows about standard antivirus software, so they can just grab any one, throw it in there and check the box and not have to think about it at all, versus kind of trying to tackle this new unknown, no pun intended, with taking a whitelisting approach instead.
Yeah, and I will say, I mean, we're not apologetic about the approach we've taken, because at the end of the day, it is a higher level of security. We believe that if it's not a known entity and you can't validate the data provenance of it, you shouldn't allow it to run your environment. Period. And so that's how bad stuff happens. So we just take the high ground on that. Now, I realize whitelisting has most people have an allergic reaction to whitelisting, because when it first came out, the admin had to compile all of the known good, and that was daunting, if not infeasible or impractical in almost every case. The fact now is we have millions and millions of lines of vetted, known software that when you roll this product out, you're getting all of that years of vetting, applied automatically. You don't have to build a global whitelist. What you have to do is by exception, you may have some discrete software in your environment that when we onboard you, we'll tackle the vast majority of that. But if it happens, your environments aren't that dynamic that they're going to be constantly adding stuff. And if they are, that's a separate discussion to have. Why are their users allowed to just add whatever the hell they want to their endpoints? That's probably another security challenge. But again, the whitelisting approach that we've taken says, if we don't know what it is, it shouldn't be allowed to run.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So
I think just to tack onto that a little bit too, like you said, with not apologizing for the approach that we take. I mean, if you've looked into any of the third-party test results that we've submitted to over the last 6 to 8 years or so, I'd say, between A/B test and A/B comparatives and Virus Bulletin when they were testing more frequently, the majority of the time, like in the Virus Bulletin case, we were failing the Virus Bulletin wrap test every time because we had false positives. And their test structure was, if you had any false positives at all, you got to strike through your name, and you didn't get certified with the test itself, even though we would come in with a 99.98% accuracy or something in terms of malware defense, while the other solutions were in the 60s or high 50s. We'd fail the test and they wouldn't. And the same thing happens with our more recent tests with AV tests. We've got, they break it down as a protection score, a performance score, and a usability score. And we're great in protection and performance because we're lightweight and we use whitelisting, and usability, we get about a half score every time. So when you're just looking at the results, it doesn't always look the best, but we keep submitting to the results anyway because, like Terry said, we're not apologetic about it. That's just the approach that we take, and it's how it all shakes out.
And just to clarify what you're saying is usability is lower on the score because people have more work to do when it comes to using and administering this application.
Right. That's the way AV test approaches it. So how their false positive test breaks down is they use about, I want to say it's around 2 million good samples, give or take. And the majority of the time we come in with about 10 to, we'll say 30 on a bad test false positives, which, as you could see, if you broke the percent down, is an insanely accurate percent in terms of clean software. But again, because the standard approach that most testing houses take is that false positives are the worst, we get really, really knocked for it, even though it's a really small percentage of, actual work that you'd have to do to rectify those.
And again, we're not saying that it's something that is initially blocked will not be allowed. We're just saying that it has to be vetted first. It's taking the better safe than sorry approach. Again, we don't apologize for it because, if it hasn't been seen before, it's not been in the wild, and it's not on our global whitelist, it is by definition an unknown and should be vetted before it's allowed to run. And so we will get unknown software thrown at us, and we'll put it in quarantine until it can be vetted and applied. And again, we don't apologize for that. That's what it's supposed to do.
No, I'm not expecting you to, just so we're on the same page. What happens if I deploy PC-Matic to some computers for a client, and all of those computers are then used offline? Does PC-Matic still work?
Yeah. So the initial install process does require internet connection. So as long as there's some kind of connection as you're getting deployed there, but we store the global whitelist definitions down on the device locally, and they're updated, kind of wrapped up and updated in bulk about every 12 hours. Any kind of like immediate decision you made in the console here, locally whitelisting, we attempt to send that to a device immediately. But that's kept locally on the device. So you go offline, everything still functions as normal, basing off of the, all the good applications you knew about at the time of disconnection, and then you come back online and pull any kind of updates down, all the new good software that we've added into that list.
Wonderful. Have you had any other weird question? And I mean, off the wall sounding questions from MSPs?
I did get a question that it took me a minute to digest and answer last week. The question was, if you had an infected host and you applied PC-Matic over top of the infected that's already currently affected, what's its level of security of cleaning it? So the answer is, when you rebooted the system, it absolutely would only allow those known goods to run, and anything that was malicious would stop running. Would we on installation, catch and remove all variants of every software? Possibly. We do have a scan feature, but we focus again on whitelisting, not on blacklisting. So we don't keep we have a robust set of blacklisted software, but it wouldn't contain every new 0 day, because the approach we take is it shouldn't be allowed to run if it's unknown. So the answer is, if you had an infected computer, we could run a scan on it. It'll catch 80 to 90% of whatever might be on there and clean it, but it would definitely prohibit any malicious activity from happening the minute it was rebooted. So if you uploaded us and you rebooted the computer, you're back to a known good state.
Interesting. Man, I'd love to see that in action. Is that a possibility, Devin? Do you have any? Do you have any
Definitely
messed
don't
up
have-
computers?
I don't have a pre-infected machine sitting around anywhere. No.
Just go to. Just
It
go
would
to
be a really
Pornhub.
cool demonstration, though.
Yeah, just
And maybe we should do that as in one of our labs and
Yeah.
then
Oh,
and
I
then
like that
record
idea.
it. Yeah, that's a good idea. We should do that.
yeah, just go to Pornhub. All you need is like 15 minutes.
I have a Linux box for that. No, just kidding.
Oh boy. That is
Actually,
really
we
interesting.
do have
Though. It's a cool question.
We do have a lab and testament environment VM where we test all the unknowns. We could probably run a simulation there. We just didn't prepare it.
No, that's okay. So, has anybody ever asked you those apps like what's it like deep freeze? You know, the ones where you reboot the computer and it just kind of images the computer again and gets rid of all the changes.
Yep.
So, are you familiar with anyone that said, you know, I didn't need to do this deep freeze stuff anymore because I've got PC-Matic on all of these, you know, student-used computers or something like that?
I don't know that I have.
I've not heard that before.
Yeah.
I'm just trying.
I mean,
to think
obviously. Well, I mean, even if a piece of software is on the box and it's not allowed to run it, it's now rendered benign, but that doesn't mean that you still want it on the image.
Oh no, no,
So
no.
we are.
I was just more or less saying that, like, there are people that will create an image using a tool like Deep Freeze, and basically any time that computer is restarted, like anything you downloaded, installed, update, it's all wiped away, and it just restarts and it's loaded up with that same image you initially created. So I was just curious, like, are you familiar with any use cases where someone like an MSP has said, hey, you know, the Boys and Girls Club, they've got all these student accessible computers. And it used to be that we put deep freeze on all of them because we just didn't want them screwing them up. And that was the easiest thing to do. But with that's creating more work for us because now we have to go and like update all these machines and make a new image, and you know, like, so you have to turn off the deep freeze, update it, make the new image, and turn it back on, and that's a lot of work. So I sit here and I wonder, you know, would it make more sense for us to just get whitelisting? Obviously, it's not going to remove any of the documents that these kids download onto the computer, but it's at least going to keep the computer safe.
Yeah, no, I mean that's a perfectly viable solution. I would say though, if you're going to go the deep freeze route, why not just go thin client or totally cloud, and that way the image is ephemeral. You start with a new image every time they log in. I wouldn't mess around with, you know, like a re-imaging every time they do it at the endpoint. I would do it at the server level. But needless to say,
some of these nonprofits, they got a shoestring budget, and that string's already got a fray in it. You know, so.
Well, then go with PC-Matic. It's a low cost and highly effective.
There you go.
There's our head of sales. That's the pitch right there.
There it is. So Devin, is there anything else that you think is important for us to know? Maybe you missed it in a demo.
Pull up the VNC one more time, Devin. I think that's important to talk about because, you know, we built our own VNC, part of the, you know, the argument of MSP is I need my RMM and I need, you know, I need access to the endpoint, and the fact is it's built into the suite, so you can, as you see, pull right up into the host. So we have a very robust VNC solution that doesn't operate on 3389, so it doesn't conflict with remote desktop protocol that may be turned on or turned off. So it is a pretty robust management suite. And we didn't touch very much on the health and awareness of the devices, but remember, you know, PC-Matic was PC Pit Stop one time, where it's specified, or it was built around, you know, the process functions of overclocking and CPU utilization, RAM utilization.
That's
so
right.
that health awareness is actually built into our platform as well. So you still can do, is this device in trouble from a hardware perspective, as well as do I have an issue with software? So you really have the ability to do some asset enumeration, health enumeration, and a security layer, and the ability to remotely manage all of it built into a single platform that'll only cost you 83 cents per endpoint.
Man, He's coming strong today, guys. You be careful. You be nice to Terry. He's got a fire underneath him.
Well, look, guys. I mean, I'll be honest. I mean, I have a very long history in the security space. I worked at Army Cyber. I worked at the NSA. I've worked in Dell SecureWorks, and I've had lots and lots of very senior cybersecurity positions. And I don't want to come off as being the ShamWow of AV. It's actually pretty offensive to me because despite the software, despite the commercials, what we've built here is a very robust set of capabilities at a low price point, so that disaffected and disenfranchised elements that can't afford, the Dell SecureWorkses of the world or the IBMs of the world, have the ability to have a high degree of security efficacy at a very low price point that's easily managed. And I think there's a grossly underserved segment of our economy that's in the mid-size enterprise to small SMB and in the MSP market that would do well to look at this as an alternative as a way to get a much higher degree of security for a lower price. And I say that because I don't want my own personal credibility to be damaged. I say that because I came to PC-Matic with my eyes wide open. I did my own due diligence, and what I saw was a product that is absolutely worth advocating for. Especially in these markets. Does it scale in perpetuity? No, of course. You're always going to have use cases to which it might not be a ready fit. But in the MSP market, mid-sized enterprise, SMB, this is a no-brainer, guys.
Excellent. Thank you. So right now we're looking at the remote access, the VNC stuff.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, the only other things I would add into what Terry said there about the VNC is, one, I mean, you saw it connects up pretty fast there. It's unattended access, so you don't have to have a user around to approve it or something. It gives you pretty easy access into a machine. You've got, some of your standard tools built in here, like another way to transfer files back and forth. So again, just pretty convenient access into a machine that, again, isn't operating not on the RDP ports, but the whole operation of our VNC is actually different than the standard VNC as well, where ours actually connects from the inside out versus from the outside in. So this initial call to access the VNC goes through our agent that's on the device, grabs the VNC there and says, hey, connect out to this connection here. So it gives you kind of that extra layer of you're not accepting connections from the outside in, it's from the inside out.
And I think this is what the next thing I was going to ask you is, where do we see this health stuff?
Yeah, so there's a few different areas for, I guess, just health stuff in general. I mean, one, you've got an area like this
and
where
real
you
quick,
can see.
Can I just say, I love that your download speed actually goes up to 1,000.
I would love a gigabit connection at my house, but just haven't sprung for it yet.
No, I just mean in general, like, you go to these things that are supposed to test your speed, and it's like, it goes up to 100. I'm like, you realize I am paying for 300, right? Come on.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, go on.
No worries. Yeah, so you'll have some vitals here about the machine, as you can see, kind of adjusting themselves around. They poll about every 30 seconds. Only if you're specifically looking at the device's page. So if I've got this one pulled up here, it's going to poll on this device if I wanted to come and see it here, but it's not something that's constantly going back and forth with that information taking up bandwidth or anything there. Let me check a couple of these other reports here that we'll jump into. Some of the other vitals that are pulled are from a scheduled scan that can be run, and I don't think you guys talked about it that much on the last podcast, but kind of one of the separate engines in our platform, or separate feature sets that are in here, is your standard scheduled scan that you can run. That's where some of the features like the patch management we've talked about live, like the performance tweaks that Terry was touching on there as well live, and then kind of your standard let's get things quarantined and wiped off the device there as well. But it's also going to be taking kind of benchmarks for performance over time. So as you can see, every single scan event that we have here is going to log a data point, and we'll be able to come in here and look at any kind of history of this machine here that we want to across processor speed, CPU load speed. We got bandwidth down here as well, how much hard drive space is being used right now, and how's that changing. And then on top of that, the majority of these can be configured for notifications as well. So another area that you can see them would be moving out to either performance or security notifications here where we get reports on, hey, this device is running out of hard drive space, X, Y, Z.
You may absolutely not care at endpoints, but if it's a server, if it's your B2B server, you absolutely want to know when you're getting, RAM utilization or hard space filled before you reach a failure or you reach, cache overflow. So having that, feature capability for your critical infrastructure is super important. And again, doesn't require any additional software.
Right. Yep. And all that can be set up based on those different levels too, like we talked about at the beginning. So the notifications could be applied, differently for different customers, different groups, individual servers or a group of servers that you have. And then you can adjust those, whether it's seeing them inside that report we were just in the notifications area. You can set up SMS or email notifications to come as well for any of these. But like you can see, some of them you can adjust thresholds as well and decide when you want that notification to actually trigger there.
Yeah. One of the things that we took a couple of face shots for early on was by default we had everything on alert. And you can get alert fatigue pretty quickly with stuff that, may not be security related, or on critical infrastructure you absolutely need. So the ability to toggle on and off what you want to be alerted for, when and what device we added in here, so that it gets away from the alert fatigue that you might have had otherwise.
Love it.
Definitely.
So how would we make some of these performance changes? Like, is it something that's like a checkbox or?
Yeah, so just in terms of the general performance tweaks that we have in here, it really is just a checkbox that's set up inside of your scan scheduler. So whether it's an on-demand scan that you're running, you just want to do one machine right now, or it's setting up a schedule for any different level inside the account here. You've really just got a checkbox to just overall make performance tweaks that we come across, and that can be looking at different scheduled tasks that maybe shouldn't be running, different services, get looped in there with disk maintenance as well, whether it's enabling certain features for SSDs or defragging hard drives, or just kind of all your general performance tweaks tied into that checkbox there.
So when we check improved performance, we don't really know what it's doing, do we?
Yeah, so really the place you'll see full breakdowns on what exactly is happening in that section, and the other sections are either in kind of an overall reports area here, which you can see at the account level or at a customer level, and then filter down by group as well if you wanted to, where it'll break down your all your different security stats here, or the more performance-based items, which will be in the maintenance section here. And you'll see, again, scheduled tasks, startups, different things that are being looked at inside of that performance area, or down at an individual scans report. So whether it's, you want to go to a device and say, hey, what was done on this machine, pull up the report, here's all the different sections we went through, here's X, Y, and Z that we found. And, whether you want to apply changes after that or not, or, just investigate what was changed, gives you an option to see that.
So the improved performance, it looks like it's doing some registry changes, clearing your junk, defragging the hard drive. And then it might be disabling some services, startup items, and changing the scheduled tasks that are on the computer itself.
Yep. I mean, it's nothing that you couldn't do on an individual device by device basis, but the management console here gives the ability to do it across whatever you're managing.
Right.
It's really the remote management of this that makes it valuable.
And again, for the MSPs that want their PSA, their RMM, and then their security suite all to be different things, they wouldn't necessarily have to check those boxes. They could let their ConnectWise or their Synchro or whatever it is do the maintenance stuff, the performance stuff, and let PC-Matic focus on the security stuff. So for those of you that are a little leery of what may seem to be like ambiguous performance stuff, you don't have to do it.
Yep. Right. And we have, like Devin said, we have several hundred MSPs. And they're running all flavor of RMM and ticketing and any number of other health suites and we run right alongside them. Whether or not a customer chooses to turn some of that off or not renew and use what's embedded in ours is always an option, but
Sure.
you don't have to have one or the other. You can run both symbiotically.
Right. Well, excellent. Is there anything else in the PC-Matic dashboard here that you think we should be seeing?
I can't think of any off the top of my head. I think we touched on most of the major areas that I definitely wanted to touch on, and the things I remember you guys talking about on the last podcast, Terry, unless you had items you know.
No, I want to thank you, Devin, for taking time.
Yes.
I do appreciate it. In fact, when I was talking on the webinar last time, I definitely called you out as I didn't want to try to run through this myself because I'm not nearly as good at it as you. So I wanted people to get a fair shake of what the software can actually do, which is why I asked you to attend. And Devin is one of our rock stars, so I'm thankful that he decided to participate on short notice. And
Me too.
I would like to open up the questions because at the end of the day. I'd rather hear what the trolls have to say.
We don't have any trolls today.
Oh, that's too bad.
There
I
are,
enjoy that.
at this time, I don't have any questions. We were able to answer all of the questions last time, and this time, we just got to see the software work. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I'll wait a few seconds. I'll chat with you just to see, just in case. You never know. But
No worries.
so I'm just going to do a quick recap. So PC-Matic, whitelisting, you don't have to worry about viruses because it literally doesn't let things run unless it's known to be good, safe, trustworthy. Um, it also has other scanning engines built into it, it sounds like, just to make sure that the computer is as clean as possible. And if you were to install PC-Matic onto a machine that is already infected, let PC-Matic do its online update, make sure it's got its latest whitelist, global whitelist, and then reboot the computer. The computer will be, I won't say the computer's drive is clean, but what is running is clean. That's a fair way to say it, right?
Yeah, I guess the way you should think about it is from the post test to initial boot to the partition and the master boot record kicks up in the operating system. The operating system will then start calling hardware calls. The first software it's called after that is PC-Matic. PC-Matic then has hooks into every other program, and so what happens is PC-Matic then compares that against the global whitelist. And if it's not on that global whitelist, it doesn't matter if it was previously running, the executable is not allowed to launch. And so that's the way. And it's not just the initial binary, by the way. We do have parent and child relationship testing. So it's how you deal with macros embedded in Office programs. We have protections against LSAS credential or memory credential dumping. So we look at parent and child processes as well, but we take the same approach. If it's not legitimate, it shouldn't be allowed to run.
Excellent. What kind of guitar you got back there, Terry?
They're actually ukuleles. I play ukulele.
Okay. It's okay.
They look like guitars for me.
Yeah,
Well, one's an 8-string. So
I guess I don't really know the difference either. Besides, ukuleles typically in the movies are very small, and those don't look small. So that's pretty much all I know.
yeah. Well, it's hard to judge. You can't tell is it 3 feet away? Is it 10 feet away? So it really,
Yeah, that's true.
when it's just software
sure.
looking at a guy, So no, that's really cool. You want to play us? Did you ever make a PC-Matic ukulele song?
No, I leave that to Rob Chang. He does all the PC-Matic band. Rob is actually a pretty gifted guitar player in his own right. In fact, we have a lot of musicians in PC-Matic, which is kind of why they did that PC-Matic band. But they're actually pretty good.
That's pretty awesome, man. No ukulele in the PC-Matic band.
Not yet.
Not yet, unless we're gonna do Hawaiian time.
I like it.
Check
Give
out
us an excuse to travel to Hawaii altogether.
check out the band Walk Off the Earth.
All right.
They have found more reasons than Jack Johnson to put an ukulele into their music. Just in
I didn't
case
know that
you,
was possible.
yeah, Jack Johnson lives in Hawaii, so
Yeah.
yeah.
If more of the world played ukulele, we'd have a lot less violence because it's really hard to be mad when you're playing the ukulele or listening to one.
So true. So true.
I like that.
All right, gentlemen. Thanks so much for doing this. For
Steve,
those,
thanks for having us back.
absolutely.
Yeah.
For those of you that
Yeah.
are interested in checking out PC-Matic, you can go to PC-Matic.com, and you'll see right there, like above the fold, you'll see MSPs, MSP Solutions, and you can learn more about it. There is a free trial once you start clicking in. When you're at the PCMatic.com/MSP, you can click on the top right to get the free trial. Check it out. Test it in your own environment, in your own demo environment. Try and beat the software up, and if it, you know,
Hey,
if it meets
last thing I'll say
yeah, go ahead.
on that about beating it up. Look, the last thing I wanted to drive home is, we make the moniker American made, but it's not just a statement of like patriotism there. It also means that our developers are like right next door and they're in the same time zone, and we can be really, really, really agile, and we can fix bugs on the fly in most cases. So if we pride ourselves on our customer service at PC-Matic. So it's not like you got to put in a ticket, wait for somebody to get into the office in Romania the next day and work your ticket and get back to you the next day after that. We literally can handle it on the fly. And so we take a lot of pride in the fact that we are built within the U.S., and there's no surprises, and the response times are very, very low.
Thank you. So yeah, put it to the test. 83 cents, you said, a device. I mean, that's
83 cents per device per month, and 93 if you want it white labeled.
that's like chump change compared to what some of these other tools are doing. And tell us, do you have any upcoming events? I know a lot of them are virtual these days, but
We've always got webinars going on. Our vice president of sales is always putting webinars together, generally, and a lot of them are targeted to the MSP market. So you can always check us out on LinkedIn. There's always something going on. Just for update purposes, we are moving into the federal space. We created the very first on-prem PC-Matic solution that provides whitelisting for on-prem environments. So if you have like air-gap systems or things that require, or that are disconnected or have to be isolated. And then we also have the new government cloud version coming out by the end of the year. So we'll have a CMMC level 5 offering for the federal government, the defense industrial base. So we'll provide whitelisting capabilities to the federal government at the beginning of the year.
and what if we wanted to use a version of either of these?
Of what? I'm sorry, Steve.
Like the on-prem version. What if we wanted to use that?
Yeah. It's the same website except it has /federal, and we'll be offering the on-prem solution comes out in October. The FedRAMP version comes out, and FedRAMP means GovCloud ready. That will come out later in the year, probably first part of 2021.
Okay.
So we'll be ready to knock that out shortly. But essentially the on-prem is literally that. It just removes the connections back to PC-Matic's commercial cloud, so that the global whitelist is pushed down, but all administrative changes are done at the local level from that point on, because government data can't be exfiltrated to a non-approved data store.
Hey, I'm poking around your man, I don't know what I did. So I'm on PC-Matic Federal, and I click the buy now button. I feel like I tricked it, because it's not out yet, but I clicked buy now. And it's selling me PC-Matic Consumer. So I was about to ask you, what's with this PC Magnum stuff?
Oh, yeah.
That's not us, right?
No. PC Magnum was a one-time sort of sales deal that we did with like the Home Shopping Network, and it was like a lifetime subscription that never aged. We've ended of life that. It's still there, but we're going to be removing it shortly from the website. It was a one-time promotional thing that we did.
So if somebody
But it
were to
would
buy
be
that right
MSP.
now, do they still get it?
I think, yeah, I think they still could. We still honor it while it's on the website. We're probably going to remove it Monday.
Well, see, this says it's an annual subscription.
For PC Magnum.
Yeah.
I don't know, Devin. I'm not an expert on our shopping cart. You are.
It's
Yeah. The PC Magnum's like a extra privacy tool that you can get. That, like you said, is an annual subscription. That it's one of the more legacy softwares that we offer from before we launched PC-Matic. But that's the reason you get directed there is, like you said, once you go to PC-Matic Federal, it's the whole, we're trying to maintain consistent headers with a nice website user interface so users don't get lost in different menus that change all the time. So you get the same header there that you see across all of PC-Matic, which primarily when people come to our website, they're looking for our consumer product.
Right. Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, but it does send an email to my side of the house for someone to reach out to you. So if anybody wanted to play, if you've got MSPs that service the defense industrial base, we will have offerings for them late this year.
Yep, there's a little contact button down towards the lower half of the Federal page.
All right. Well, you heard it here first-ish. Definitely check out. I have no idea when the first time you announced it was. That's all I meant, guys. So if you're an MSP and you're supporting federal or air-gapped type of environments, they will be able to take care of literally almost everything, it sounds like. So, yeah, definitely check out PC-Matic. I think I may check it out as well for my own MSP. So we'll see how it all goes. Thanks so much, guys, for being here.
Hey, thanks, Steve. Anytime, brother. We appreciate the discussion, and we don't mind the trolling. In fact, we enjoy it. So invite us back anytime.
Yeah, I was going to say almost exactly that. I think after I watched the first podcast that you guys did, I think you even having us on the first one, even with your skepticism, I think speaks to the kind of MSP that you are, or the kind of overall person that you are, just being open-minded. So I think it's a cool setup that you've got here.
Well, I appreciate that. And I think we can upgrade you guys from ShamWow. I'm thinking maybe I'm going to upgrade you guys to the pillow pad, okay? It's the pillow pad, it's an angled pillow, right? And it sits on your bed or on your lap, and then it's angled, and then you put your iPad here. And then your iPad's got a little pillow for you in bed, so that way it's at the perfect. So you guys are upgraded from the ShamWow to the pillow pad.
Well, if the pillow pad had a concealed weapon carry, then it would be equivalent. So now you have your security and your comfort.
There you go. I like that.
Hey, at least I didn't make you a Snuggie, right? All right, guys.
All right, thanks, Steve. We appreciate it, brother. Have a great week, and thanks to your audience as well, man.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Take care, guys.
Take care, man.